All right, we are back here. It's Selection Sunday. We have brackets, as you can see my Zoom background. We're now in March Madness, and with us here for our annual March Madness run here, the great Troy Mauriello is back with us. He of the Craig Carton. I don't know what the morning show name is now, but Troy, welcome back. How are you?
Well, it's good to be here, Mike. It's Breakfast Ball on FS1, our new show. But it's great to be here. Best time of the year. Happy to talk some brackets.
Yeah, some talk some brackets here, and I have to say, I before we get into the stuff here, I will make a note that, like, obviously I was a little sick last week, a little under the weather, so actually it turned out to be a good week to just like doing really nothing and having college basketball on all day from like Wednesday through Sunday, and like this is probably the most fun champ week I've seen in the last like 20 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, if there was ever a week to just be on the couch and doing nothing, it was definitely this one. Yeah, I was at the Big East tournament basically every session actually Thursday through Saturday, and I mean Big East tournament always delivers, of course, but we had some other great conference tournaments, and yeah, I mean outside of probably the first day of March Madness, you can make a case that Thursday and Friday of conference championship week are really some of the best times of the year for a college basketball fan.
Yeah, and I mean, think about it. Like, I think Thursday, Friday, I think this year. I mean, like you had the double overtime game with Texas and Texas A
Yeah.
on Thursday. You had some of the craziest, like North Carolina, and some of these Big
Hmm.
Ten upsets, and like you had these great championship games in the mid leagues. Like there was a lot going on here, and important to note here that if the powers that be have their way, like none of this will mean anything if they go to 76 because all your drama will be done by like Thursday afternoon.
Exactly. Yeah. If they expand, we may as well not even do these conference tournaments because, like you said, everything's going to be pretty much decided, and we're going to be debating what if a team can get over 500 and make it into the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, I mean, a large part of that drama comes with a lot of these teams don't know if they're going to be in the field or not. You look at Xavier in the Big East tournament, playing an unreal game against Marquette. They obviously get into the field in the first four, but they were one of those teams as well. That was that game probably would mean a whole lot less to Xavier if they were comfortably in the field if the tournament expands.
Yep. Let's get into some stuff here. So obviously we'll start out here. We have the full brackets. We'll get to the breakdowns I made here. How do you think the committee did this year? Now, last year you were a big F minus on the committee here. Like, how do you feel they did this time around?
It's what D minus, maybe a little better than last year. I'm not as upset, I guess, this year because my team didn't get shafted as St. John's, but I mean some crazy seed lines that were just way off, and I mean the big one that everyone is going to be talking about is North Carolina, right? Like a team that was on, I think if you looked at bracket matrix, I think they were on like 20, 25, 26 of the 111 brackets on there going into selection Sunday, and they're a team that's the last team in the field. I mean, that one's the craziest one, of course, but look at Louisville, a couple seed lines lower than we would have thought. A team like West Virginia not getting in, a team like Indiana getting in, a team like Texas getting in. It's there's some funky things that they did, and the point or what I was actually thinking as I'm watching Selection Sunday is it almost I love the whole field of bracketology, and I love following these bracketologists and seeing all these different opinions, but like it almost makes it irrelevant because it seems like the committee just goes completely rogue from like what every bracketologist thinks. So it makes me almost think like why are we even doing bracketology when the committee every single year it seems like is just going to do whatever they want and not really pay attention to any of the things that the bracketologists are paying attention to.
Yeah, I personally give them a C minus. I feel like in terms of teams being in the field, I think there's like one major quibble, which I'll get to in detail, and you hinted at it already. But like, I think their biggest issue was like them having to navigate putting 14 SEC teams in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Things very complicated with the seeding principles, and that may have
Mm-hmm.
lines a bit. So I give them a break on that, where they felt that all those teams are up again. I get that. That's kind of skewed the seeding a little bit, where you're trying to avoid putting these rematches in. So I give them a pass on that, but like some of their choices were wild. I will say that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and you look at like Auburn basically having to play a road game against Louisville in the second round. That was, of course, a product of all these SEC teams, and it's not an easy job, of course, but it just seems like year after year we have these four or five teams that are just way off either in the field that should not have been in the field, not in the field that like no one was talking about West Virginia not being in the NCAA tournament going into into Selection Sunday, and here they are out. I think they were on another one that was on every single uh, bracketologist on Bracket Matrix, and a team that gets left out. It's there seems like there's like three or four every single year that you're just completely scratching your head with.
Yeah, I think let's get to those snubs here because we talked about here, like we were talking before the tournament started, like, okay, well, like Carolina has to beat Duke without Cooper Flagg to get in the field. They don't. They end up getting in at the expense of West Virginia. We heard
Mm-hmm.
from this committee chair, Bubba Cunningham, who is incidentally UNC's athletic director, which,
Mm-hmm.
to be fair, conspiracy theorists, they have this procedure that he was not in the room when they're talking about North Carolina. The issue that they seemed to point to was, oh, Tucker DeVries got hurt for West Virginia. He missed time, and they're not the same team without Tucker DeVries, which is
Mm-hmm.
fair. But at the same time, like we're looking at a situation where West Virginia had six quad one wins, four of them against like top tier teams in the
Yeah.
and North Carolina got one against UCLA by a bucket at Madison Square Garden in December.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost
Mm-hmm.
12 quad one games. They did not really be able to get quad two either, which is the argument I had over for Xavier over them. They
Mm-hmm.
did
Mm-hmm.
nothing and basically got in by the skin of their teeth because, in my opinion, they wanted the brand for television, did not want to, have West Virginia be that last team in the first four.
100%. And what you mentioned about their AD being the committee chair, that puts to bed any serious conspiracy theories about that. But like maybe it is human nature that if you're on this selection committee with him, you know that the guy running it is a North Carolina guy. Maybe it does impact you a little bit. I'm thinking more along the lines of what you just said, that it was done for TV and for brand purposes. And at the end of the day, the brand of North Carolina pulls a lot more weight than the brand of West Virginia. So I think that's what they went with. They went with a game that's going to get a big TV rating on what is it, Tuesday or Wednesday night, whenever they play that game. It's going to get a big rating because it's North Carolina. West Virginia in that game is not doing much for them. So that I think probably weighed more than any conspiracy theories that you could say. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head. 1-12 in quad one games. It wasn't like North Carolina was 1-3 in quad one, and you could be like, well, they didn't really have the opportunity. Maybe if they played a couple of more, like they had 13 opportunities, 12 times they fell short. Why are we're crediting a team for just playing a tough schedule? Like the first thing that I think Seth Davis said on the bracket reveal was, well, North Carolina played a really tough non-conference schedule. Well, yeah, but they didn't win any. They won one of those games. So like I don't understand. We're just giving them credit for playing tough games. So now if you're any sort of a high major team next year, just front load your schedule with really tough games in November and December. Play like 10 quad one games in November and December. And then whether you win them or not, it doesn't really matter because you're going to get in the field if you go 1-9 in those 10 games. North Carolina proves that. And you compare this to last year where, and I know this is sour grapes on my part, but like the big thing for my St. John's team last year was they just didn't have the high quality wins. I think they only had one or two quad one wins last year. A team like St. John's, they were left out. Why is it any different now this year? I know the bubble's a lot weaker, but why is it any different now this year where a team like my team last year was not even in the first four out? So it was at least five teams out of the field last year. Now North Carolina gets in. Again, I know the bubble's weaker, but it was done for TV ratings, I think.
Yeah, fewer bid thieves for sure also helped the
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because last year, like we had three notable ones that
Mm-hmm.
out of here. I will say also the job the committee did explaining, at least on the CBS like shot on I know they do further interviews going on. I haven't checked any of those out as of recording time, but the job
Uh-huh.
they did in the immediate aftermath, asking why Carolina's in the field, very, very weak because the
Mm-hmm.
obviously Cunningham deferred to the second person in the committee, the co-committee chair. And
Mm-hmm.
his answer was, well, we had a contingent bracket that they were out of the field, but because Memphis won, they're in the field. You didn't tell us why they're in.
Exactly. And about the bid thieves as well. How about like last year, like you said, you had all those bid thieves, NC State, being the biggest one when we had really a historically strong bubble. Now this year we have a historically weak bubble, and there's no bid thieves to be found. It's just it's very typical. But yeah, like you mentioned, I mean, dealing with the selection committee, they're going to go out now, and West Virginia, a team like West Virginia and Indiana, they're going to want answers, and they're not going to get them. As someone who was in this position last year of a team that thought that they had a really good chance and then got snubbed for a team like Virginia or Colorado State that really wanted answers, you're not going to get answers from these guys. And no, like you said, it's very rare that someone's even going to press them for these answers. So that's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think in terms of the Xavier thing, I know Xavier gets getting thrown the same bubble here. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
give them more of a pass. I feel like their thing is weird because the whole thing with the net sort of disrespecting the Big East is
Yep.
two of their best wins over Creighton and UConn both came at home, and then they ended up being quad twos because they both fell like 30 in the net. Whereas, like,
Mm-hmm.
I look at it as, like, okay, they beat three tournament caliber teams this year, and like they deserve to be there. And like the first four seems perfectly fine. I get the argument Carolina, which okay, like at some point winning games has to matter, and they won 22. So I think
Mm-hmm.
I understand that argument as well, where you have like, a West Virginia team that lost 13 games as well, only won 19, got bounced in their opener of the Big 12 tournament to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Ohio State lost 15, Indiana lost 13,
Yeah.
only quad one. I get all that, but
Yeah.
like it feels like a moving target every year what the actual bubble line is.
Exactly, and I think that's a great way to put it. Is like what is the metric or whatever wins, quality wins? Like what are we looking at here that is just the be all end all for if this team does this, they're making the tournament, they're making the first four, and then if this team doesn't do this, they're not in. It seems like it's different year upon year. Where like this one year the conference tournaments matter, the next year they don't. It's not a consistent thing year to year. Going back to your point about Xavier, I agree. I thought going into the Big East tournament, that was just a very typical first four team. So I think they actually got Xavier right. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice to have some consistency in terms of year to year what they're actually looking for.
Yeah, I think another thing it's another team I'll throw out here in the snub category here. Poor Boise State, sitting
Mm-hmm.
there. And I think they got hammered a little because the Mountain West got six bids last year and they flopped in both
Yep.
of them. So like they
Mm-hmm.
we sat here last night watching this title game against Colorado State and said basically, okay, winners in, losers out. And you look at the
Yep.
resume, like they had some weird losses to Boston College and
Mm-hmm.
Washington State on there, but it's the team that beat Clemson, they beat St. Mary's. They beat New Mexico. They beat Utah State. They beat San Diego
Mm-hmm.
State on a neutral floor. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's actually be ahead of them because they beat them twice in the regular season. But like the fact they were below, the other three teams in the power conference is not a fair look for them either.
No, exactly. And like you said, like if the name of the game is wins over NCAA tournament teams, Boise State had that. Like they had that part of their resume locked up. The issue is like you mentioned. I think the Mountain West getting so many bids last year. Again, I think that human nature plays into this at the end of the day, and you stop just looking at the resume and you start saying, hey, they put in, or the committee saying, hey, they put in so many Mountain West teams last year and that got a lot of backlash, and then it really kind of backfired because all these Mountain West teams were out pretty early. We can't, put a Boise State bubble team in over, I guess a North Carolina or a Xavier or even a Indiana or what. Like we can't do that. I think human nature at the end of the day plays into that. Looking at what happened last year and saying we can't give another Mountain West team a bid.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it could have been a five bid Mountain West. I would have no problem with if they got in even over like a Xavier or North Carolina there. I would have no problem with it. But I understand why they sort of like I know they're supposed to say committee and the conference affiliation does not matter.
Mm-hmm.
But
But it does
it
though.
does. They say it does.
Yeah.
The
Uh
same
huh.
same way they say that like the team name doesn't matter. Like
Uh
where
huh.
you like if let's be honest here. If you gave Boise State the North Carolina resume, they were not getting near the field.
They're not even the next 10 teams out. If you give Boise State that resume. That's a great point. Yeah, they can say what they want. We all know that the team name matters, the conference matters, all that matters. And the putting North Carolina in again, like that was the one that just it made no sense because like you said, Boise's the last team in. You probably have some complaints, of course, but I don't think it's as this big of an outrage as North Carolina being in.
Yeah, like, and this is also a year where the bubble was weak, and like all these teams had flaws where you could say,
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
write a bubble watch column for Fanside, like throughout the season. Like there are points in here, I'm like, who do I put in for this last season? And like I can like it's great, but like when I'm staring at a team that's 1-12 in quad one games getting the call over teams that
Mm-hmm.
win six, four, three, five quad
Yep.
games, like that to me is like, what are we doing here?
And you and I have been doing this podcast on Selection Sunday night. for a while now. And I remember a couple of years ago, it was one of the weaker bubbles. And I remember saying to you, like, I don't really feel bad for any of these teams that got left out because at the end of the day, you were a mediocre team, but like I was prepared to say that this year for months. I was like, okay, whoever doesn't get in, I'm not going to feel bad for them because they didn't deserve to get in. It was a mediocre bubble and they couldn't separate themselves. North Carolina getting in makes me feel bad for a team like West Virginia or even a team like Indiana. Like that completely changes my narrative of I don't really feel bad for you when a team that you were clearly better than gets in.
Yeah, and just out of curiosity, have you seen the official seed list for NCAA yet?
I saw it. I don't know it off the top of my head though.
Yeah, I have it pulled up here. Go to Safari. We'll go
Yeah.
on X here. This is from
Yeah,
Jeff
let's see it.
here. And the thing of note here on the list is that, look at these. This is where the 11 line is here. You got your three your first four teams at 41 Texas, 42 Xavier, 43 San Diego State. Then you
Mm-hmm.
got the other two automatic at the 11 in Drake and VCU,
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina. So
Mm-hmm.
they were a tier below
Yeah.
the two AQs from the 11 line, not just the other three first four teams.
Yep. Yeah, yeah, they knew. And I do want to say this about North Carolina as well. I know that we're ripping on them a lot, and they've had plenty of opportunities to prove themselves. Whatever we're saying about them now, they could go out and make the Sweet 16. Like that's the beauty of the NCAA tournament, right? Is like
Yep.
what I mean, again, this team had so many opportunities. They had 13 opportunities really to prove themselves. But the crazy part of the NCAA tournament is would it shock anyone to see them win their first four game and then win a first round game? Like it's that's the way that it goes. And maybe a North Carolina team looks at this and says, "Hey, we thought we were dead in the water. For 48 hours, we thought our season was over. Essentially, now we got a second life, essentially a second chance at life. Like, let's go and make the most of it." So I don't want to just write North Carolina off because they are a talented team, of course, and that's how we do it. But that doesn't change the fact that they should not have been in.
Yeah, anything jump out at you on this list, the seed line?
I gotta look real quick here. Um, Nothing. I mean, nothing crazy here. What are you seeing?
I think to me, it's like I look at some of these teams that like you look at like how they play on their metrics, that they feel like low, especially like St. Mary's down at 27, Gonzaga at 30.
Yeah. Well, Gonzaga, I mean, is a huge outlier compared to some of their metrics.
Yeah, Gonzaga's like a top 10 team in some of these metrics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got Creighton. I thought was very disrespected here. Basically, like the SEC ship pulled up all the boats, and like a lot of SEC teams ended up very high, which
Very true.
is like
Very true.
they crush each other a lot, and that helped them move up with the rankings here. And like,
Uh-huh.
if there was ever a year for a team to get 14 or 16 teams in the field, like I think this was the year. I have no problem with like these teams did enough, and like I mean, we can bag on Oklahoma, but like they went undefeated in non-conference play, had good wins in there. You can bag on
Hmm.
Arkansas; they had some good wins in week play.
Yeah.
Like
Uh-huh.
I'm not like bagging the SEC.
No, no, and even a team like Oklahoma, yeah, like you said, going undefeated in non-conference set you up that you really just had to hold on for dear life in SEC, and they did that. They got a couple of wins that they needed to get, and they did so well in the non-conference that they didn't really need to do a whole lot in conference play. Yeah, and like you said, the bubble was so weak this year. I think that you're going to defer and give the SEC kind of the benefit of the doubt. We were on a show a couple of weeks ago saying this is probably, just by metrics, this is probably the best conference we've ever seen. Now that doesn't necessarily translate to March success. The SEC could lose, nine of its schools in the first weekend or something like that. But just in terms of the regular season success, the SEC was probably the best conference we've ever seen, or at least the best conference in modern times. And it kind of worked out well for them, having just such a historically weak bubble this year.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think just the struggle trying to get all those committee teams in and like
Yeah.
trying to
Mm-hmm.
avoid follow the rules, like trying to limit the rematches as much as possible. Like I get why some of the lines were off and why we had to, probably drop teams up and down a few seed lines to like make sure that this works. Like that's why I give them the C minus. That they had a very tough job trying to get that many teams in.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, like yeah, this is probably the hardest. I mean, it was the hardest you'll ever have in terms of trying to mix and match teams. And we were talking about it before the show. My St. John's team. In any other year, they're probably in the East with Duke as the two seed, but because there's so many SEC teams at the top half, or the top part of the bracket. St. John's had to be in the West, so like that's just an example of it. Of they got to move some things around. Like you said, a lot of teams had to have their seed lines change as well.
All right, so I think let's get into some of these regions here. You have a preferred region you want to start with?
Let's start with the South. How about?
Yeah, so go up to Auburn here, the number one overall seed. So they got I think a decent draw for the most part here. So let's pull it up on the YouTuber. My Phillips on YouTube. We're seeing the NCAA March Madness graphic on X for the South region here. Auburn starts out. They got the 16 seed, Alabama State, St. Francis, the first four winner. Louisville Creighton, the 8-9 game. Michigan wins the Big Ten tournament and tells you that the Big Ten tournament does not matter here. They just
Exactly.
a
Yep.
5 seed. They get UC San Diego on the dangerous mid majors. Texas A&M, Yale 4-13. Ole Miss gets the first four winner of San Diego State, North Carolina against
Hmm.
Iowa State, Lipscomb. Then the bottom of the bracket, Marquette, New Mexico, Michigan State, and Bryant here. So, any early takeaways from the South?
Now, I'm looking at the South and I'm seeing a lot of awesome potential second round matchups. I mean, you've got Auburn versus either Louisville or Creighton. I think Auburn versus Louisville would be, I mean, you could have told me that was going to be a Sweet 16 matchup a couple of days ago, and I wouldn't have been that surprised. We're getting it in the second round. And of course, being in Lexington, that's going to be a crazy early test for Auburn having to go, essentially on the road against Louisville in a second round game. Look at like a potential Ole Miss or even North Carolina versus Iowa State in the second round, and then the bottom half of that bracket. How about Michigan State versus either Marquette or New Mexico? You can get it. You could have Izzo versus Richard Pitino, Izzo versus Shaka. You get Shaka versus Pitino in the first round game. I'm sure Rick Pitino is going to be sharing some scouting reports with his son about Marquette. So there's some really cool second round games there. Auburn obviously has been struggling of late. I still think that they got to be the favorite here, but I love Michigan State. I love the way that they play. And if they can get through that pod, I do think that Michigan State is a lot better than anyone in that, Iowa State, Ole Miss. I think Michigan State can get to at least the Elite Eight very easily if they can get through that first weekend. But it's not going to be easy, whoever they play, either Marquette or New Mexico.
Yeah, that's true, for sure here. A couple of things of note here. Like obviously that 8-9 game very difficult you mentioned for whoever gets through there to deal with Auburn. I think that's gonna be a fascinating matchup here. I think I'm calling a 5-12 here. UC San Diego
Yeah.
over Michigan. I mean, people don't realize how good the Tritons are.
Mm-hmm.
I watched some of the Big West title game last night. This team is very deep. They have, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you're of this fact, six 1,000 point scorers in their careers on that
That's
roster,
crazy.
which
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
counting D2 obviously, but that's an insane stack here in terms
Yeah.
of that. Plus, I think obviously if you're looking for that feels like every year a first four winner gets through the round of 64.
Yep.
I
Mm-hmm.
think right here, whoever gets out of this game is taking Ole Miss out. And
Mm-hmm.
everybody can just go back to North Carolina as to how they look and how they played. Do not forget, San Diego State beat Houston on neutral floor in
Mm-hmm.
November here. So don't sleep on the Aztecs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I actually like Ole Miss to get picked off there as well. And I think UC San Diego is going to be a real trendy 12-5 upset pick. Would have been really interesting to see if they did not win the Big West, if they would have gotten in. But Michigan, I mean, has been playing with fire all year long in these close games. They got another one this year. I think that's going to be the real trendy 12-5 upset.
Well, I think judging by our seeds, they would have been the first team out if they had lost that game.
Oh, true. Yeah. Which is, yeah, very surprising, right? Or
Yeah,
actually, I guess not surprising when you look at how the NCAA handles it.
yeah, they would have won. Like again, we're on the TV purposes here. North Carolina over UC San Diego State.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I think the other interesting thing here, I mean, like, I'm glad you pointed to the bottom, Michigan State, because I think like they are. I feel like they are the twin of St. John's in the same way, where like they're both
100%.
deep and can defend very well with a Hall of Fame coach. And
Hmm.
I saw this like somebody tweeted this online, like Izzo and Patino leading March Madness teams built on defense that can't shoot threes, and the economy is crashing. Welcome back to 2009.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. I honestly like it's hard to pick against Auburn, but I really like this Michigan State team. Like you said, they just defend so well. They're another team like you said, like St. John's, that when they don't want you to score, you're not going to score on them. Like, and that's just I don't love. I mean, Marquette's chances against the Michigan State team when they got swept in 3 games against St. John's, like you said, and New Mexico even faced off with St. John's and lost to them as well. So when you're looking at a team like that in that mold, they should get through. And then I would love to see a Michigan State versus Auburn. Elite Eight, like offense versus defense, just an awesome Auburn offense, and then a really good Michigan State defense.
Yeah, another important thing to note here is Michigan State, they go 10 deep and they have 10 guys who can.
Yep.
So, like, that's a scary matchup proposition in March when, like, you have teams that are tired and you're playing the second game of the back to back and you go 10 deep and they go 10 deep, you go seven. That's a little harder to deal with.
Yeah, experience and depth are the two things that win in March more than anything.
Yeah, and I'll also throw out one more note on this region that could be a lot of fun in terms of, seeding and whatnot with Michigan State and Auburn here. I think the Auburn situation gonna be a lot of fun just because you also remember here, historically, no team's ever lost three of their last four regular
hmm
season games and won the NCAA tournament, which Auburn did with their two games
Yep.
in the season and the loss to Tennessee in the SEC title game.
Yeah, it's you wonder, is it just playing such an incredibly tough SEC schedule that finally got to them a little bit, and now they'll be able to regroup, or is it a team that's kind of fading and maybe peaked a little bit too early? I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, we will find out here. And do you want to go? Where do you want to go next?
Let's go to the East. Let's see Duke.
All right, so we will go to Duke in the East region, and still lingering questions about Cooper Flagg's availability here because he sprained his ankle in the opener of the ACC tournament. They wisely held him out the rest of the way, so we don't need Cooper Flagg to win this
hmm
region, and they were correct. So here's what we got. Duke, first four matchup, American Mount St. Mary's, the MAC representative who knocked Iona out in the title game on Saturday night. Mississippi State and Baylor, by far the weakest of the 8-9 games. That's a
Yep.
draw here. Oregon and Liberty, 5-12 is a lot of fun. Arizona, Akron, a fun 4-13.
hmm
BYU, VCU, I want to talk on this game more. I feel like this is the game of the first round, in my opinion. I love this game. I will be trying to find it wherever it is. Wisconsin, Montana, the underseeded bowl, 7-10, St. Vanderbilt. And then Alabama, Robert Morris here. So early East region.
Yeah, they said it on the broadcast here. Look at the offenses in this region between Duke, Alabama, Wisconsin, Arizona. Like there are some really, really talented St. Mary, the really talented or St. Mary's is the defensive team in this region, actually. So the really talented offensive teams in this region. Talking about Cooper Flag, is it even worth it to bring him back? Like if he's, if he's 100% and everyone is saying he's 100% ready to go, bring him back. But like obviously in the game against the 16 seed, I don't know if you need him. I don't even know if you need him, like you said, to beat Mississippi State or Baylor. Like Baylor's a team that doesn't scare me at all, and neither does Mississippi State, I guess, a little bit. But that, like you said, that's the weakest of the 8-9 matchups. Duke should cruise past them regardless if they have Cooper Flag or not. So I wonder if they'll hold him out a little bit longer. But man, what about a potential second round matchup between Alabama and St. Mary's? That Alabama offense versus that St. Mary's defense could be really, really fun. And then, like you said, what a game between BYU and VCU, two teams that have kind of flown under the radar in terms of a national sense all year. BYU, what a coaching job in year one by Kevin Young and VCU as well. So very, very interested in seeing how the East plays out.
Yeah, I love that BYU VCU game. I think it's one of my favorite games of the whole tournament. I'm excited to see that one here. Whoever
Mm-hmm.
gets that game is, in my opinion, I haven't figured out who I'm picking yet. They're knocking Wisconsin out. Wisconsin is highly overrated.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and that's a Wisconsin team, faded down the stretch last year as well in the NCAA tournament. Would be very interested to see that. I also like Akron and Arizona. Like that could be a sneaky. Akron's been so good this year. We'll find out how it translates to a big stage game. Arizona's a team that has suffered some upsets in early rounds. I know that it's been over the years, different coaching staffs and things like that, but. Would it shock anyone to see, Akron knock off Arizona and maybe even Liberty, like you get like a 12-13 matchup in the second round there?
Not surprising at all here. And like this is like interesting here because like these 4 5s, Arizona and Oregon here, like these are the teams that like, have been very inconsistent over the course of the season where like their highs are so high. You're like, wow,
Yeah.
to win that
hmm
championship if they're right. And you see some
hmm
of their lows, you're like, wow, they could lose the first round. And like
Uh-huh.
they both and you get these teams playing against these high achieving mid majors who win 28, 29 games and are veteran experienced groups here. Like these are good upset options here. You're looking at this one, and I think
hmm
down the bottom here, St. Mary's and Vanderbilt too. Very interesting game here. We said the defense here and Vanderbilt, like in the tournament, are ahead of schedule. A lot of giant killing wins here,
Yep.
and
hmm
if they get through Vanderbilt here, they get an SC rematch at Alabama in the second round. That would also be interesting.
Yeah, how about that for Alabama, right? You just played an insane SEC schedule for basically 2.5 months. You get one game against Robert Morris to rest, and then it's like possibly right back to Vanderbilt, or St. Mary's in the second round. Just a really tough draw for them. But I mean, we both agree. Like, I don't Duke's not getting challenged here until at least the Elite Eight. I think like no one in that top half of the bracket, I think, is really going to give them a challenge. I think
I think
Alabama is right. I don't know. What do you think?
I think you need Cooper Flag for the Sweet 16.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. Yeah, but I don't think that they're getting challenged at all in the first weekend.
Oh,
And
no.
like we said, like Oregon and Arizona, high highs, lows, low lows. They could both get upset too. Like we could see Duke playing a double digit seed in the Sweet 16. It wouldn't shock me. So I do think you bring him back for the Sweet 16, absolutely. But I don't think they get challenged until the Elite Eight.
My hunch is with Cooper Flag. I feel like what Duke does here is like I think that Cooper Flag does not play the 16 game, and
Uh,
we saw how good they can beat you without Cooper Flag again
yeah.
in the last two games of the ACC tournament. Like I think he
Hmm.
sits. I think you get him on a minutes restriction in the 8-9 game where like you just ease him back in and like he plays like 15 minutes instead of 30, and then
Hmm.
ideally he's good to go in full throttle by the time you hit the Sweet 16 and do work on Thursday night.
Yeah, I could definitely see that because then I'm not sure if they're Thursday or Friday in
They're
their first round.
they're I think they're Friday night in the first round.
Okay, yeah, so then they would be Sunday in the second round. So that's what 10 or 11 days since he had the injury. I could see that minutes restriction on that Sunday second round game, and then you give him basically 2 full weeks off to come back for that Sweet 16 game. I could definitely see them doing that because, like you said, they're a team of 5 stars still. They're still good enough to definitely at least get through Mississippi State or Baylor in the second round without Cooper Flag or without at least a full throttle Cooper Flag.
Yeah, I mean Cooper Flag is a generational type of player and like probably the best collegian we've seen since Zion, but like that
Hmm.
team still has Tyrese Proctor, they still
Hmm.
have Conker
Hmm.
Cole, they have kind of Malak. They have so
Yeah.
much
Uh-huh.
on that roster. Like I'm not worried about Duke being able to field a team good enough to easily roll through those first two games.
Exactly. And especially with how weak the ACC was this year, like Duke probably or possibly could have still been a 1 seed even if Cooper Flag wasn't on the roster. So like they're getting through that first weekend.
Yeah, ironically too, like if they play Mississippi State in the round, if they play Baylor in the round of 32, they will get to probably the Sweet 16 without playing a ranked team since December 4th.
That is crazy, right? Wow, I didn't even think of that. That
Yeah.
is, yeah. I mean, talk about a relatively easy path. I mean, they earned it, but speaks to how bad the ACC was this year as well.
Yep. And I think I think that's pretty much it on the East, unless you have anything else you want to add.
No, no, I think we cut it all there.
All right. So where do you want to go next?
Let's go to the Midwest.
All right. So let's go to the Midwest next here. This is Houston's region. We're getting all these graphics on YouTube from the NCAA March Madness Twitter/X account. Houston's the 1 seed. They get the 16, the first time tournament club, SIU Edwardsville. By the way, Troy, I love that we got so many teams making the tournament the first time this year.
Yeah, very cool to see.
Yeah. The 8-9 game, probably, I think the most fun 8-9 game on the board in Gonzaga,
Uh-huh.
Georgia. Clemson, McNeese, a 5-12 game. I feel bad for McNeese. I think Clemson is probably the strongest five on the board. Purdue,
Hmm.
High Point with a 4-13 matchup. This pod, the Illinois Texas Xavier group's a lot of fun, especially if Texas
Hmm.
gets out of it. Kentucky and Troy, 3-14. Then UCLA and Utah State and the 7-10 matchup. And then Tennessee and perennial tournament struggling coach Rick Barnes against Wofford here. So early thoughts on the Midwest.
Yeah, let's start at the top there. Like you said, what a fun first round matchup. Gonzaga versus Georgia. Can make the case Gonzaga is maybe a little underseeded there as an 8 seed. And then you talked about your favorite first round matchup. I think my favorite potential second round matchup might be Houston versus Gonzaga. What a game that would be if we get that in the second round. Again, another 1 seed in Houston that has no cakewalk to the Sweet 16. You're either facing a Gonzaga team that, like we said, by the metrics is a top 10 team in the country or a Georgia team that came battle tested out of the SEC. So tough draw for Houston to get to the second weekend. Obviously, they're a very good team as well. I love this Clemson team as a 5 seed. A really tough draw for them facing McNeese in the first round and then getting Purdue in the second round. But I like this Clemson team a lot. They're experienced. They bring back basically, I think, their top 3 scorers from a team that went to the Elite Eight last year. So I like this Clemson team a lot. to get out of that pod. Like you said, the Illinois and Texas Xavier and Kentucky pod, a lot of fun there. A lot of fun offenses. Illinois, Xavier, and Kentucky teams that can score the ball. Should be a lot of fun. I think a potential like Illinois Kentucky second round game would be awesome. That game would be played in the 90s probably. So man, a lot of good matchups there in the Midwest region. Then the bottom half, like you said, Rick Barnes, with Tennessee, potentially taking on, trying to get through this to the second round, potentially taking on a team like UCLA or Utah State. Let's see if he can get through it.
Yeah, I love this pod. Some stuff here. I think that Gonzaga Georgia game is a lot of fun, and like
Yeah.
got the worst 8-9 draw because like you say Gonzaga highly underseeded as an 8 and like
Mm-hmm.
top 10 team in some predicted metrics. You got
Mm-hmm.
Georgia as a team that I believe they beat Florida. I think
Yep.
they beat Tennessee this year too.
Did they beat? They definitely beat Florida. I remember that game.
They beat Kentucky as well. I know that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they beat your guys. They beat St. John's in Bahamas.
They sure did. Yeah, that's Georgia team is really solid.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think in terms of potential upset here, watch Purdue High Point here. And like the Boilermakers have been up and down without Zach
Mm-hmm.
this year.
Uh-huh.
And they have some good players. They have Braden Smith, they have Trey Kaufman ran. They have some good talent there, but did not finish strong. They had some big upsets down the stretch here. And High Point, again, a first-time tournament club. They have a lot of experience. They have a lot of scoring. I think this could be an upset special.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. And I think that's why I like Clemson so much. Like you said, Purdue kind of limped to the finish line a little bit down the stretch, took some bad losses. That's I think why I think Clemson McNeese is a really fun first round game. But then, I like Clemson a lot to get through that pod.
Yeah, and I think down here on the bottom of this bracket, I
Yep.
think is where you have a lot of chaos down here because I think
Yeah.
I have a lot of potential here. I mean, obviously, Illinois, I've seen Illinois play a lot. Like in their games, they could beat anyone in the country. They could also get blown out by Texas or Xavier, which is very possible the way they play.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you could see Kentucky, get to the Elite Eight. They could get bounced in the second round. Same for
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Tennessee, who like UCLA is no slouch out of the Big Ten. Utah State's a good Mountain West team. I feel like there are like scenarios here where you could get Kentucky and Tennessee and have a chalk in this side, or you get
Yep.
like Texas and UCLA in the Elite Eight in the Sweet
Yeah,
16.
like let's just run through like the seeds in that. Like you could obviously see Tennessee making the Elite Eight. You could of course see Kentucky in the Elite Eight. You could, I think, see Illinois. Like we've seen Illinois play so well this season. I wouldn't shock me to see them. And same thing with UCLA. We've seen this UCLA team at times look like a top 10 team this season. So like you're looking at the 6 and the 7 seed down there that could, it would not shock me to see them playing in the Elite Eight. Even a team like Xavier or Texas, has looked. I mean, maybe not like an Elite Eight team, but like a top 25 team in parts this year. So a lot of teams that like have that potential. Like you said, there's a lot of potential for chaos there. Even a team like Utah State, like there is a lot of potential for a team that you would not normally think making that run. I don't see that going chalk. I don't see it going 2-3. I think we're going to see some big upset somewhere.
Yeah, speaking of a storyline here, we had a lot of fun. Sweet 16, Tennessee, Texas, the Rick Barnes Bowl.
Yeah, right. I mean, if it's going to take a lot for Texas to get through that, but that would be a lot of fun, right? Rick Barnes going against his former team.
Yeah, and the Rick Barnes thing is why I'm always down in Tennessee. I know they made the Elite Eight last year, but like
Hmm.
this is a team I think going back to 2009 at Texas, gone to the tournament 12 times, 9 times out before the first weekend. And
Yeah. And again, like it would it shock you to see UCLA or Utah State knocking them off? Wouldn't shock me.
it would not. And I think another thing with tech with that too is like I'm curious these SEC teams like playing so many brutal games over the course of
Hmm.
3 months. Like, are you battle tested and stomping people outside your league, or are you worn down and you get picked off early?
Exactly. Yeah, and we're gonna find that out. I mean, I think I said this before. Just based on how many bids they got, the SEC is gonna let down a little bit. They're not gonna send the 13 teams to the Sweet 16, but yeah, like you said, are these teams battle tested and these games are going to be like cake to them, or is it are they just so worn down and so beaten down from playing 2.5 months of tough games that a team like UCLA or a team like Utah State can pick them off?
Yeah, and count this. This might be an old take exposed kind of thing, but like it's weird to say. I feel the safest for any team to get to the Sweet 16 in this group is Clemson.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah, I think I think they get through McNeese relatively easily, and then I think we're both kind of down on Purdue. So yeah, I think Clemson has a really good shot. I think Clemson has a good chance to knock off Houston too. I got to look into it more and really think about it. Clemson might be my sleeper Final Four pick in that region.
Yeah, and don't forget, the only AC team to beat Duke all season.
Exactly is the only yeah, and no one's going to pick them, and no one's going to be talking about them because the ACC was so bad this year. That's a team that and again, would it shock you? We're all season long. How bad is the ACC? How bad is the ACC? The ACC ends up sending two teams to the Final Four. Would that shock you? Like that just seems that's how these things always go.
Yep. All right, so let's go to the last region here, the West region. So this is one like I think this is a very fun region here where Florida is the one, Norfolk State, they get UConn potentially if they pass Oklahoma in the 8-9 game. Memphis, Colorado State, a fun 5-12.
Mm-hmm.
Maryland, Grand Canyon, 4-13. Interesting matchup there. Mizzou against Drake, a very
Mm-hmm.
tough Drake team in that 11 game.
Mm-hmm.
Texas Tech, UNC Wilmington. Then the St. John's pod. Kansas, Arkansas, the 7-10 matchup here against St. John's against first time entered Omaha. So obviously I know this you're invested the most in this region because it's the St. John's region. So West takeaways.
Yeah, the West takeaway is my wallet's going to be hurting a lot after going to that St. John's pod this weekend. The second that I saw Kansas and Arkansas revealed, I knew those ticket prices were going to be crazy. They were already pretty crazy, and they're going to be absolutely insane. If that's a ticket to have, that's the one that you want. Obviously, the coaches there, Self, Calipari, Rick Pitino. You got Pitino versus Calipari potentially in the second round. You got Patino versus Self potentially in the second round. Just really, really fun matchups there. Those are obviously the pod to watch for the entire weekend. But there's some other really interesting matchups. Florida potentially taking on UConn. We get another conference matchup with Florida and Oklahoma. We had talked about a couple of weeks ago how strong these 8-9 seeds were going to be this year. And I think this is a great example of a UConn team that if a couple bounces, I mean, listen, they struggled this year. Don't get me wrong, but Danny Hurley said if this is a down year for us in a year that we suck, we'll take it. This is a bad year for UConn, obviously, and they're an 8 seed, and they are a live 8 seed. I think to potentially make some noise here against Florida. That's not going to be an easy game for Florida in round two. And then, like you said, a lot of fun first round games, right? Memphis and Colorado State, Maryland and Grand Canyon, Missouri and Drake. Those are a lot of fun games. Like some teams that maybe aren't getting the shine all year. Memphis and Colorado State, of course. Drake, of course. Winning 30 games this year. Like those are some teams that are not necessarily in the headlines all year, but they're going to play some really fun games.
Yeah, I think this region looks like it's a lot of great games the first round, a lot of
Yep.
potential upsets, but I'm gonna go with I think another hot take here. I feel like this is the region that everybody's gonna pick the upsets, and it's gonna be a
Mm-hmm.
long chalk for the most part.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of these teams to get through. I think Florida got a tough draw, but they have shown they're capable of navigating it. Maryland has a good big man, Derek Queen, and they have some
Yep.
good
Mm-hmm.
skills here. Memphis is a solid five. I know they have lost Tyrese Hunter and he might not play, but I don't trust Colorado State to actually get something done as a 12.
Mm-hmm.
Your one upset the first round is Drake or Missouri, because I love that Drake team.
Yeah, and that Drake team's just been winning games all season long. Going back to Maryland, I mean, it seems like their season is either destined to go to the Final Four or just lose on the most heartbreaking buzzer beater known to man. Like just with the way that their season has gone and seeing how they're losing these games, they're either going out in the most heartbreaking fashion possible or they're going to the Final Four. That's the only logical conclusion to their season. But like you said, I mean, look at the top couple of seeds in this region: Florida, St. John's, Texas Tech, Maryland, and Memphis. That's a really strong top 5 seeds in this region. You got Missouri as a 6. Like this is a really really talented region. I like you said, I think that the strength of the top 5 or 6 seeds in this region could probably carry them. Or carry us to some chalk going into the second weekend.
Yeah, I think the only real like deep sleeper here you can see, I think, is Drake. 'Cause I think Drake is
Yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
to get. I think they win both games in their pod, but I think that they are definitely in the second round, in my
I
opinion.
agree. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I don't see any double digit seeds in this region that are that live. I don't think. Like I maybe I'll regret this, but as a St. John's fan, I don't know if I fear Arkansas as much. Maybe I'm going to regret saying that, but I think I'd rather play Arkansas than Kansas, but it's really a toss up for me, to be honest with you. Drake, obviously, as you said, is a live double digit team, but outside of them, I don't see any major Cinderella runs out of this region at least.
Yeah, like if I was you, I would much rather see Arkansas because I know Kansas is inconsistent, but like this was a preseason number one team for a reason, and they have the talent to like put it all together for like a couple of games. The question is, can they do it for six? I don't know, but this is a team where like they have done enough this year and they played pretty well in the Big 12 tournaments. Like, could they do it for two and ruin your season? Sure.
Exactly. That was exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, they probably can't do it for 6 games in a row, but they can probably do it for two and knock us out. So that's why I think I lean Arkansas just because of the talent of Kansas. Not to say Arkansas is not a talented team either, but yeah, I mean, talk about some just awesome TV matchups and awesome games to be at. Can't wait for that.
Yeah, and I've talked to our friend Zach Braziller last week on the podcast, and his one concern for St. John's tournament is like dealing with the team with the big man because we saw Calvert
Yep.
have issues points during the regular season. Not a big fan of seeing Hunter Dickinson in that round of 32 game.
Yeah, and you've seen. I mean, St. John's on Friday night against Marquette Zubiec for 33 points. He was a man amongst boys, but he has struggled. He struggled a little bit with Ryan Kalkbrenner until he kind of figured him out down the stretch against Creighton in the Big East final. So it would be very interesting. A Zuby Ejiofor versus Hunter Dickinson matchup. Zuby Ejiofor transferring out of Kansas as well. Just an unreal story. I mean, storylines. So many storylines out of that little pod.
Yeah, a big and obviously I think Patino obviously getting a 16 to tournament is gonna be a huge storyline throughout March Madness.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you could even have St. John's versus Arkansas. There's a Vice TV show going on right now about Rick Pitino and John Calipari. So you've got a little crossover episode there too. The storylines write themselves.
Yep. So I think that's it for this region here. So I think a couple things I want to wrap up on here is like we do have the tip times for the games for the first rounds of games here. So I believe like the first four, correct if I'm wrong, is it the UNC game is Tuesday and the other one's Wednesday? Or is that I flipped?
Oh, I'm looking right now. Do I have it up here? I don't have it up here yet.
Yeah, I'm just checking here because I'm trying to figure out where the that game is because that's the one I'm curious about because I know that like yeah bear
Here
with
we go. So UNC is the late game on Tuesday.
yeah, so they're going to be playing on Thursday. So that,
Hmm. Hmm.
that's the situation here. So in terms of what we have here, so we'll go through the TV windows. So take a look at what's going on here. So Thursday early, tournament starts Creighton, Louisville. I'm excited about that. I think it's a good idea to start tournament an 8-9 game.
Just an awesome opener, right? Like that game is that game is going to be a 5 point game with a couple of minutes left. It'll be a close game. Love that.
Yeah. Then we got High Point, Purdue, Montana, Wisconsin, SIU, Edwardsville, Houston. So two bangers, I think, to start. Then you got to get two chalkies out of the way.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of get a little struggle or get a little bit less watchable there. I mean, it's all watchable, but a little less watchable.
Yeah, then we go to here. It's the second window here. See, the first four winner in the 16s against Auburn, McNeese, Clemson, VCU, BYU, Georgia, Gonzaga. It's a very strong late afternoon window on Thursday.
For sure. I mean, Georgia Gonzaga, really, really excited for that game. And then, like you said, VCU, BYU, you get two really awesome games. And then, you get Will Wade against Clemson and McNeese. So should be a fun window there.
CBS, thank you I mean, Martinez, thank you for putting two 1 seed games in the afternoon on Thursday where on the primetime spotlight.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're gonna have those games, yeah, it's better to get them out of the way when most people are at work.
Yep. So now we have the night window on Thursday here. Wofford, Tennessee kicks off on TNT. The CBS game, Arkansas and Kansas. Yale, Texas A&M. Drake, Missouri. So I think that's a good start.
Yeah, yeah. And for the casual March Madness fans that, this is the first time watching college basketball all season, all eyes will be on CBS, of course, at 7 p.m. Arkansas, Kansas. I mean, that's that's the casual fan's dream. That game's going to do a crazy rating, I'm sure. And I mean, listen, Drake and Missouri is going to be a really, really good game. I could see Yale and Texas A&M being a good game as well, but all eyeballs are going to be on Providence there.
Yep. Late window Thursday, Utah State, UCLA, Omaha, St. John's, UC San Diego and Michigan, UNC Wilmington, Texas Tech. So Troy's locked in on TBS on on CBS at 9 about 10 o'clock on Tuesday on Thursday, and make it hard for him to work on Friday morning, but he'll be there. And UC San Diego, Michigan. So strong weight. The later windows are stronger in both of these.
For sure, yeah. But I mean, what sticks out to me there is that 9:45 tip on Thursday night.
Big,
Oh no,
yes.
I gotta figure out what I'm doing for work on Friday.
Yeah, you might need to have some Red Bulls on hand for.
Exactly.
All right, so now I go Friday here. So Friday start. The Iron Crew is on the Duke pod, which is no shock here. So
Mhm.
Baylor, Mississippi State kicks off the day. Robert Morris, Alabama. Lipscomb, Iowa State. Colorado State, Memphis. This is not a great start, in my opinion, here. I think this might be one you can start late on Friday.
Exactly. Yeah, you start with like you said the worst 8-9 matchup, and then three games that I mean I mean Memphis and Colorado State will be a good game, but the other two should be blowouts.
It doesn't start till 2 o'clock though. So like you have time to like if you're
Ex-
at work, you can say to your boss, like, okay, I'll be more productive on Friday.
exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And then stick this to the second window here. Mount St. Mary's and American winner against Duke. Vandy against St. Mary's, the North Carolina San Diego State first four winner against Ole Miss, Grand Canyon, Maryland. I am stunned that Duke is not in the Friday night primetime window.
I was just gonna say that to you. That's got to be the first year ever that Duke is not that 7 o'clock CBS game. That is shocking.
Yeah, and you know North Carolina the same window too potentially. They win the first four game. Like that's a
Yeah.
wild.
Wow. Look at that. Yeah, you got Duke and UNC, tipping off within an hour of each other. Wow.
Yeah, that's a wild schedule goal. I think you want to split those up theoretically.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, the third one seed game is going to be in the early window here.
What is the CBS 7 o'clock game on Friday? I'm
Let's
curious.
let's look right now. So the sixth. So that well, actually that makes sense. So
Yeah, I
Georgia
can talk.
Tech,
Okay.
Florida get the last one seed game early. Troy and Kentucky. Kentucky's the CBS window.
hmm
New Mexico, Marquette, Akron, Arizona. So not bad.
Not a great start, but I think both of those later games, New Mexico and Marquette, and then Akron and Arizona, are two fun matchups.
Yeah, and then we have here the last window here, which I think is another very strong window.
hmm
Oklahoma, UConn, Xavier, Texas winner, Illinois. Odd that they have both of the first four winners playing on Friday.
Yeah.
Thursday.
So that's well, yeah. So that's an extra day off for North Carolina, I guess. That's
Yeah,
strange. Yeah, or for North Carolina or San Diego State. That's strange.
Bryant and Michigan State, and then
hmm
Liberty, Oregon, the last game of the first round here. So Friday weaker than Thursday by far.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, but all eyes in that late window there will probably be on Oklahoma, UConn. And then, if we can get Texas, Illinois or Xavier, Illinois should be a decent game as well.
Yes, they went Kentucky as one of their headliners in the primetime window, and the other one is going to be I forget who we had on Thursday. I go back
Yeah,
here.
it was, yeah, go check.
Kansas.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah,
But I mean maybe they figure no pot or probably no Cooper flag on Friday night. Maybe that factors
I think
into it as well.
yeah, it's true. They might have been gambling, but if they hold them out, we don't want to get burned and have Duke blowing somebody out without Cooper flag at 7 o'clock.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
hmm
will say though, like I would bet like anything that like Duke winning, Duke's get the 5:15 Sunday CBS last slot.
For sure. That is a lock.
Yeah, and I would guess they'll probably do that entire Kentucky pod and then do the Duke situation after that.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
All right, so that's an interesting spot here, Troy, on that one here. Anything else you wanted to talk about before we wrap up here?
No, I think we're all set. I wish it was Thursday already. I'm ready to get this thing started.
Yeah, like any early thoughts on the Final Four? I know we haven't filled the bracket out yet, but like if you just had to make a gut
Oh,
based on what we've seen.
this is my first thought. Honestly, I haven't done any brackets yet. I think I like Michigan State out of the South, to be honest with you. I in the West, I, I'll take my Johnnies. Why not? So I'll say Michigan State and St. John's. In the Midwest, I will take I will take Houston, and then in the East, I'm going to take Duke. So I'm going to go two ones and two twos.
Yeah, my hunch right now, and this is not again, I have not done the research and like really broken everything down, is sort of Michigan State in the South. I'm gonna go Duke in the East. I'm gonna go Clemson Midwest and Florida West.
Yeah, I could see myself, like I said, going with Clemson as well, out in the Midwest. So that it's subject to change.
That'd be two ones, a two, and a five, according to.
Uh-huh. Which I mean, who knows how it's going to happen, but that feels safe.
At Midwest, I feel like the only thing I feel confident is Clemson, which is lead me to where I'm going to push them as far as I can.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. And then you could
Because
see
I could,
Houston get
because that's, yeah, I think you're about to say it, but I could so easily see Houston going out to Gonzaga. And
exactly. Yeah, like it's so tough to take a one like it's that's just such a tough draw for them.
yeah, that's the, like, getting Gonzaga in your 8-9 game. I'm sure Kelvin Sampson's fuming right now.
Uh-huh, for sure, for sure. There's a very good chance that by the time that the first round games tip off on Thursday, I'll have Clemson in my Final Four as well.
Also, do not forget, too, Houston has injuries with Jawan Roberts. So that's
Yeah. Uh-huh.
positive going into that first round.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Troy. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. If you want to follow me on social media, how can I do that?
Yeah, for sure. You can follow me at Troy Mauriello. It's Mauriello. And yeah, if you're a St. John's fan, definitely check it out. I have my thoughts up after every game. So yeah, definitely follow me out.